Good morning everyone, my name is Cyprian and today I'm going to be showing you how to make the Crochet Rustic Rib Pumpkin. I want to mention is that the striped pumpkin shown at the beginning of this video I didn't actually make until after the video was made, so I have jumped in to show you how to make the striped version. So this is a really easy pattern, but the reason I'm choosing to do a video for it is because there are a few tips and tricks that I can tell you to make it a little less frustrating if you lose track of where you're stitching. So we're going to be making a rectangle and then joining at the end to create a tube and then cinching the top and the bottom. So the entire pumpkin is made out of slip stitches, and I am using Lion Brand Re-Spun Thick and Quick. This is the color Cinnamon, and you'll see in the photos that I've chosen a lot of colors to make it out of. I loved the muted tones of this, and again, because it's a pumpkin and it's decor and it's just made for fun, I encourage you to use up any scraps that you have, maybe 3 strands of worsted weight together or 2 strands of chunky, and this uses a 10mm hook. Now I do want to point out that this is a very stretchy fabric, but if your weave isn't tight enough, then your stuffing is going to show through. So just make sure that it's nice and tight like this one here. Okay, so to get started, you just need some super bulky yarn, and I'll put the amounts in the video here. There's 5 sizes. There's not a huge difference between the sizes. I wanted them subtle and I wanted them smaller than my last pumpkins. Okay, so gather your supplies and then we'll come back and meet up. Okay, I have made this pumpkin in stripes and it's super cute. Now unfortunately I did it after I did this video, but I'm going to show you what you need to do and what you should avoid doing. So for this, all you're going to be doing is changing your yarn every 2 rows. And so to calculate the amount of yarn, you would just take the yarn calculation, or sorry, you would take the yarn amount that's on the website and divide it by 2. But I'm going to put more detail in the blog post for that, so you can pop over to the blog and read it. Now, one thing I want to mention, well, this was the first striped one I made, and I ended and started the pumpkin with the same color, so you want to avoid doing that because then you end up with this really thick band. What you want to do is make sure that whatever color you're starting with, which I started with the cream, that you're ending with 2 rows of a different color, even if that means that the pumpkin is maybe a little wider, a little shorter than called for in the pattern. I think it's more important that you don't end up with this blob of a color. Now, if you do not know how to do a color change, I'll just take this stitch out and show you quickly how to do one. Let me just grab. Okay, so before you finish your last stitch, which is right here, you're going to pull your yarn through, have 2 loops on your hook, pick up your contrast yarn, and then just pull that through, and that's your color change done. Then you'll go on to do your chain, turn, and start working as per the pattern. These ends might get a little loose, so just give them a tug. Now also for mine, because this is a pumpkin and because we're cinching the top, I just carried my yarn. I know it looks a little bit messy, but that's going to be hidden when I close the top, whether this be the top or the bottom. But also if you wanted, you could fasten off, but I think this is less work just to carry the yarn. But if you have suggestions on how to do it better, please comment below. I am not the best at working with color and making color changes, so this is just simply how I have done it. So this is the wrong side and this is the right side, and you get this little stitching pattern naturally just working these rows. It is so cute. I was so excited when I did this one. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to finish up all the striped ones I did, which I did a few different ones. Oh yeah, something else I want to mention. Okay, so this one was made from all super bulky yarn that was close to the same gauge. But for some reason, when I switched to the Lion Brand woolies, the mustard was super thick. I don't know why, but it ended up actually making the pumpkin a lot taller. So just be aware, you can mix and match the super bulky gauges, but it will change the size of your pumpkin. But I'm sure that's not super important. Like this is 12 stitches, this is 14. No, wait, this one's 14 stitches. So you can see it's a lot taller. Normally it wouldn't be quite so much taller. All right, so back to the regular scheduled programming. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate the small pumpkin, no, the extra small. So I'm just going to start with a chain of 13. What I want to mention is for your starting chain, you will need to work the chains fairly tight. So let's just go ahead and do 13 or whatever number for the pumpkin that you're making. The beginning of the pumpkin is super easy. I just want to show you later on in the video how to keep track of when you're working in the front loop and the back loop. When I was first working on this pumpkin, I kept forgetting which side I was working on. I tried to use stitch markers, but it just wasn't working. And then it dawned on me the simplest way to keep track. So I want to be sure to share that with you guys. Okay, how many do I have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Do 2 more, 12 and 13. Okay, so then what we're going to be doing is just working slip stitches all the way across and starting into the second chain. So let's go ahead and do that and just pick where you're going to work it. So just work your stitches. You'll see there's like 3 strands of yarn. Always work it in the same strand all the way across, or sorry, above the same strand all the way across. So I'm just working just above these 2 and below the top one. Okay, so I'm just going to slip stitch all the way across. And I also want to mention, when you're working your slip stitches, be sure to keep your tension very loose. If you're fairly new to crochet, loosen the grip on your crochet hook and try to loosen your hands and keep them very relaxed. And this will help you to keep your tension quite loose. The reason is, if we work these slip stitches too tight, they're very difficult to work in as we go back to the other side. So I'm almost finished this first row here, and at the end of the first row we're going to have 12 stitches, of course, because we started in the second chain from the hook. Okay, so we'll just go along and check those and make sure that we have 12. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay. And if I'm talking too fast or going too fast, be sure to slow down the video, and that will help you follow along if you need me to go just a little slower. Okay? Okay, so now we're just going to chain 1 and turn our work, and I want to show you where to work the stitches. So sometimes I'll recommend to put a stitch marker to mark your last stitch, but really all you need to remember is that this last stitch here was your chain stitch, and we're not working into those. So you're going to turn your work to expose those finished stitches here, and we're going to be slip stitching through the back loop only of each stitch across. So this is your front loop, this is your back loop, just in case you don't know, and you're going to put your hook in there and just work a slip stitch, again keeping your tension very loose. You're going to go into the next one, and sometimes if they're too tight, and mine are pretty loose, but I'm still having to use my fingers to manipulate that back loop over my hook, and that's okay. And I find that the further along I get in the pumpkin, I get into a groove and it becomes very easy to work. So also, to keep your stitches nice and loose, be sure that you're not pulling this yarn too tight, because that will affect how loose your stitch is as well. Okay, and I'm just going to go along and I'll finish up. And of course, we're not adding or subtracting any stitches, so make sure that you've got 12, and then we'll go on to row 3, which is slightly different. Okay, see how that's looking nice and even? So try to keep them nice and even, but if you're pretty new, just do what you can do. It's a pumpkin, who cares, right? It's decor. We're starting out, this is going to be the back of our pumpkin. Just have fun doing it. Okay, I'll meet up with you soon. Okay, so I finished that row, and I want to show you here, because if you're fairly new, it can start to get complicated to tell your stitches apart. So what you're looking for here always is these nice big V's that you've done. So those are the stitches that you just completed. And when you're a beginner, this all kind of starts to look the same. So just come back and look at the video and look for those nice big V's. Okay, so I've gone along and I have checked that I have 12 stitches, and all we're going to do again is chain 1 and turn, and you're not working into that chain. Okay, so this is when it can start to get difficult and you can lose track, especially if you get called away and you're at the end of a row. I actually found when I finished the rows it was harder to figure out where I left off. So now what you're going to be doing is working into the front loop. So we're going to work a slip stitch into the front loop all the way across. So again, this is your back loop, back being the one furthest away from you, and the front loop, which of course is closest to you. So we're going to go ahead and work slip stitches all the way across. And your back loop and your front loop. So let's work this. Slip stitch all the way across. Again, slip stitch all the way across. So I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to go and finish this up, and then we'll meet up again. Okay, so I just finished row 3 and it's looking a little bit like a hot mess right now, but trust me, keep going. Go ahead and make sure again that you still have 12 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Perfect. And now we're going to go back and we're going to repeat row 2. So let's chain 1 and turn. And again, you're looking for those large V's, so you're going to be working into the back loop here. So just go ahead and slip stitch those all the way across. Now I want to go ahead and work this row and one more row after this so that I can show you how to keep track of when you're supposed to be working into the front loop and the back loop, and it's a little bit easier to show you that when we have a few more rows done. So I hope you're enjoying this. If you're struggling a little bit, again, it probably comes down to tension. Make sure that your grip is loose here, you're not pulling this too tight, and that your hands are nice and relaxed. I'm really glad I'm back making videos again. I missed it, and I'm hoping that you guys are enjoying this one, and I hope that you all had a really nice summer and did something fun or special, or at least relaxing. I didn't really do a whole lot of time at home, but I love being at home. Okay, so I've just finished that row here. Because we just worked in the back loop, we're going to go ahead and chain 1 and work in that front loop again. So this is your back loop, this is your front loop. So let's go ahead and work that. We're working a slip stitch into each front loop across. Now, one thing that I want to show you here, and again, I'm going to show you how to figure out when you're working the front and the back. Okay, so this is going to be the outside of the pumpkin. You can see the stitch coming together now. It looks like a purl stitch, like for knitting. Now, all you need to remember is the front side of the pumpkin, the outside of the pumpkin facing you is also where you work the front loop only. So the front of the pumpkin, front loop only. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish this, and yeah, I'm going to pause it and then I'll come back and meet up with you. Okay, so I just finished that row, and you'll see that this is like really scrunched together. It's a very stretchy fabric. Now in the pattern, I tell you to crochet to a specific length. So I'm going to crochet this till I reach 9 inches. And what you need to remember is that the measurement that I give you is unstretched. So just when you're finished making the pumpkin, don't stretch it out. That is the measurement that I'm giving you. So I'm actually going to make this between 9 and 10 inches. I'm going to decide when I'm finished, because I want like different size of pumpkins, so you don't have to be exact. All right, so on this last one that I show you, we're going to turn this here is the inside of the pumpkin. And so because it's the inside, we're going to work the back loop only. So I hope that that tip helps you. Perhaps you will not go through the confusion I went through trying to keep track. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this up. If you're an advanced crocheter or have already made pumpkins, you can just go ahead and finish them. You know what to do. But just in case you're pretty new and you're giving this a try, I'm going to come back and show you how to put it together. And yeah, so I hope you're enjoying it so far. Just remember, count your stitches, keep your tension nice and loose, hands relaxed, and you will breeze through this in no time. Okay, we'll see you soon. Okay, so I have finished that all up, and you can see here, that is an example of when I did not, this is actually not the pumpkin I was working on, I'd already done this one, but in the interest of getting this video done before my family's home, I'm going to use this one. But you can see here, I did not work my starting chain tight enough, and now that I have worked the rest of the pumpkin, they don't line up. But I wanted to use this one just to show you, in case you've done that too, how we can fix that up. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to insert our hook into that stitch and then find the corresponding starting stitch here. And as long as we're always working through a corresponding stitch, you'll see how this will turn out. So let's just go ahead and keep working slip stitches all the way across. So I'm going through this one here, and then I'm going to find the corresponding stitch there, and we're just going to pull that through. Okay, and don't make them too tight because you don't want the back of your pumpkin to pucker. So I'm working through that stitch there. I'm going to find the corresponding one here and just work that slip stitch. And just do that all the way across. So I'm going to do that, and I'll meet up with you at the end of the row, and we'll go ahead and finish up the pumpkin. I wanted to come back and show you I've almost finished, and you can see how it's already starting to line up. So we'll finish this up, and then you're going to need to grab a tapestry or a yarn needle, and we're going to cinch this closed. So that is us done all the way to the top. So just pull your yarn through, and then I'm going to grab a needle and we'll come back and sew that up. Okay, so I've got these really great tapestry needles that I found. They've got this big hook, and oh my gosh, I love them. They're so easy to thread. I'll leave a link to those maybe down below, or you can find them on Amazon. I think I may have even gotten these at Walmart. Okay, so all we're going to do now is just work this needle back and forth, and you want to make sure that you're working through a decent stitch so that it holds tight, and don't put it too low or you're going to end up with a lot of bulk when at the top or the bottom of the pumpkin, whichever part you make this. Okay, just keep doing that all the way around and keep pulling this as you go. So I'm going to do that, and then we'll come back and we'll stuff the pumpkin together. Okay, so I finished weaving it in and out, and you'll see it's still a little bit open. So all we're going to do here is just weave back and forth and sew that closed. And then you flip your pumpkin right side out. And I do find that sometimes you'll find that it kind of veers off to the side a little bit. So if you're somebody who likes to block stuff, I guess you could block it. I'm too lazy, but I'd love to hear if you did and how it turned out. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to work in the top of the pumpkin, and we're actually going to do the weaving of the yarn before we stuff it, because if we stuff it, the yarn and the needle and everything is going to be getting caught up in the stuffing, and it's just going to be a hot mess. So let's go ahead and do exactly what we did in the bottom, and we'll just weave back and forth. So I'll do that, and don't pull it closed, just leave it loose, because of course we have to stuff it. So I'm getting all tangled up here. So I'll go off camera and curse and get all this figured out, okay? So weave in and out, and then we'll come back. Okay, so I finished weaving that in and out, and all we're gonna do now is stuff your pumpkin. So I'm actually, I'm using stuffing from an old pillow. It was one I bought for like $5 from Giant Tiger, but it squished down really quickly. It didn't last too long, but I'm telling you, the stuffing, buying a $5 pillow was a heck of a lot cheaper than buying stuffing somewhere else. So I was quite thrilled. So when I stuff the pumpkin, you want to make sure that it's like a medium stuffing, like maybe like, think of like Goldilocks. So it's not so firm that you can't shape it, and it's not so soft that it doesn't take shape. So I hope that makes sense. But you know what? You can play with it and see how you like it. All right. And then we're just going to pull this closed. And that worked pretty darn good. I think that worked better than the bottom. And you'll see here how it's starting to kind of twist, but you can take your hands and just sort of shape it. So, oh, I love this. So let's just take a couple of small stitches here, and then of course you'll have whatever you choose for a stem to put there. And maybe I'm making a mistake by closing this, but I'm probably going to end up gluing my stem on, so I'm going to do that. And then all I do to just give it a little bit of shape is to take the needle and put it down the middle. Now, if you're making a really big pumpkin, I found these needles at my local fabric store. I'm in Ontario, so it was Fabricland, and they're upholstery needles, and you can get a whole set, and it's got like a bunch of lengths from, I would say, from 6 inches to 10 inches. So they're amazing. If you've not discovered those yet, I think that would make making your pumpkins a bit easier. And I was kind of not off center there. Okay, so you can see how that's pulled it to the inside. And I might just do that 2 more times, just go back and forth to make it a little bit stronger. And that's all the shape I wanted to this pumpkin, because I think that looks really nice. And also, I should mention, to resize this pumpkin, your starting chain is your height of your pumpkin. So if you want a taller pumpkin, just make it more chains. And for a wider pumpkin, just do more rows. So it's super simple. There's no special stitch count. You just do as many stitches as you want and go from there. So I'm going to find something to dress this pumpkin up with, and then we'll come back and I'll just show you.
Thanks so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out these videos next. And until next time, bye-bye.